Hello, YouTube. Hello, TikTok. Um, while we're waiting for people to turn up, I'd love to know where you're from and how old your kids are. And if you want to add whether or not you're new, I'd also love to hear that. Because I can usually tell when someone's new because they'll ask questions that obviously I've already talked about. So love to know if you're new. And I do things a little bit differently too for new people because I've got some real standard stuff that I'd like to repeat if someone's new. So where are you from and how old are your kids? Hi, Taylor. You've been here before. Okay, so how old are your children and where are you from? Just waiting for people to tune in. That's why I'm asking this. Calgary, 14 months and a baby due in February. Oh, you're right in the stink of it. Physically, it's a wonderful time, but yeah, physically, because you got two little ones in diapers and that's a lot. But then you get it all over with quickly, right? So yeah, it'll be fun. And by the way, you can't prepare a toddler for a new baby coming into the house. They have no concept of how much it's going to change their lives. So you can't explain that to a toddler. So yeah, and some toddlers are really calm and easy. Both my kids were pretty on the calmer side. So, but yeah. Anyway, so okay, well, let's just get going. Excuse me. Let's just get going with our parenting questions. My name's Lisa. I'm a parenting coach. And if you go on the link above, you can hire me for coaching, download my course, or pardon me, download my free behavior board or buy one of my courses. My big course is the boot camp, and that's from 3 to 12 years old. It teaches you how to be a leader in 5 weeks. So let's get going with your parenting questions, and we'll go from there. Saturday morning, generally, it's a quieter live because everyone's busy with families. So that means I usually get to almost all the questions on a Saturday live. So that's good news. So let's get going with your parenting questions. Just ask away. I don't see any coming in. So what I'll do while we're waiting is I'll just go through my top 5 tips for parenting toddlers. I have to read that or else I'm going to say that wrong. Okay, so this is my top 5 tips for parenting toddlers. Number 1 is childproof your home so you never have to say no. Number 2 is get a toy rotation system in place so they're never bored. Number 3 is when you want to connect with a toddler, you play in their world. You don't connect with a 3-year-old at the nail salon. You get to go to the park and roll down the hill with them. Number 4 is when you're disciplining a toddler, it's not words, it's actions. And you don't do the mini therapy sessions. It's not for them, that's for you. They are about consistent corrective actions because they learn through repetition. And number 5 is stop trying to figure them out. Toddlers are not figure outable. They're brand new, fresh human beings, and they're just forming. So they're going to do all sorts of crazy stuff. Some toddlers might even stick their hands down their diaper and smear poop on the wall. They don't have any concept of yuck. You know what I mean? Like they're just forming. So anyway, parenting questions, ask away. If not, I'll just do another little spiel. I got millions of them. So what are your parenting questions? Okay, here we go. 5-year-old having a hard time to control his emotions and reacts. What can I do to help him? Okay, you can never, people talk about self-regulating children's emotions. It's just garbage. What you're doing is you lead by example. You cannot teach someone how to regulate their emotions. What you do is when you're a calm leader, it tends to calm them down because they are watching you. While they're forming in those first 7 years especially, they are watching you. It's all about observation. It's not about therapy sessions discussing how to regulate feelings. I know it's really trendy to do that, but when you're a calm leader, they will regulate their own emotions. It calms them down. It makes them feel safe. So that's how you do that. It's not about fixing them. It's about fixing and teaching yourself how to be a leader. So that's how that's done. You don't talk to a child about how to regulate their feelings. It's just, I know it's trendy right now. That's my nemesis in my business because it's absolute garbage. It's just garbage. Okay. Okay, here we go. Michaela on YouTube. Let's say you do earn their respect through being a leader at home for them, but how does this translate to the outside the home? Very good question. I've got a really good answer for you. Like what happens if they have a teacher they don't respect? Okay, here's the thing, is when they've got a leader at home and they respect you and you've got to respect them too. That's how it works. It's mutual respect. They respect everybody. When they're 3.5, especially by the age of 4, they carry your leadership umbrella everywhere they go. They can't disrespect someone else because they've got to answer to you when they get home. They'd be humiliated to face you if they were disrespectful out there in the world. So you still have to work on your leadership skills. If they're 3.5 to 4 years old, you still really have to work on that because it just makes sense, right? They've learned how to respect people by respecting you. So yeah. Also, a lot of people tend to misinterpret respect for you giving in to everything they want and making sure that they like everything that's happening in their world. So a lot of parents are the old pleaser parent, not the old, it's the new pleaser parent style. It's been about 30 years now, but I call it the pleaser parent style, where you make sure that everything is fun and happy for them all the time and they get their own way. And then a lot of parents misinterpret that for respect. Then they go to school and they can't figure out why their hellions at school don't respect anybody. They're not being catered to at school like they are at home. So that could be it too. My almost 3-year-old kicks the dog. Yeah, if they're almost 3, they could probably go on the behavior board, and I would say no kicking the dog, and there would be, they'd have to be picking up dog poo or something. Check out the behavior board. It's completely free. But yeah, if you cannot control that 3-year-old to stop harming the animal, rehome the dog. I've actually had clients who've done that. I'm an animal lover. I would never allow an animal to be abused in my home, ever. I would rehome an animal, but if I couldn't control my child and protect the animal, I would rehome it. So that's my advice. I'm an animal lover. Yeah, I would never allow that. Yeah, it's hard work, but you can't allow that. My 2-year-old twin, not say mama or baba, just said but understand and do what? So you're concerned about their speech and not, they're only 2. They'll figure that out. So don't worry about that. If you're really concerned about maybe speech delay, then go to a specialist, go to a doctor. But generally, they don't really speak that well until they're really, I would say 4. 3 to 4 is when they're all different, right? Though it depends on what kind of parent you are and how much you talk to them, and also their basic personality. Some of them just aren't in a rush to talk. And we are too, and so is he. Just does it sometimes. I don't know why he loves them. What was that? Whoa. Almost 3 kicks the dog. We are too, and so is he. Just does it sometimes. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what to say. I've already answered that. I don't know what else to say. I'm such an animal lover. My kids weren't allowed to pick up the dog. We had a Maltese, and they were not allowed to pick up the dog, and they knew that. Because if they loved her, they were really kind to her. But what if they dropped her? They're just kids. What if they tripped and fell and she was in their arms? So yeah, they were only allowed to hold her if they were sitting down, and then I'd put her on their lap. I was very fussy about that. And then they learned, and also the bird, they could never, tease the bird or anything. So, and they just knew that. They grew up respecting animals. If you teach them how to respect animals, they tend to respect people more too. It's about kindness, right? Yes, they're different. His twin sisters started talking. Yeah, they're all completely different. I knew someone who, actually they were brother and sister, and the older one, the girl, she was 3 years old before she walked her. Oh, this is the story they always told us. It could very well have been a little bit younger, but anyway, they always said she didn't walk or talk till she was 3 years old. And her younger brother, who was 2 years younger, he was running around just getting her stuff that she wanted. She'd point and grunt to something, and he'd go and get it for her. So he was a complete opposite to her. He was talking really early, and then and then they said she just got up one day and talked in full sentences and ran. So she just was in no rush. What do you do when your young child learns a cuss word? Yeah, if they're toddlers, you just say no and then you ignore. And every time they say it, you just ignore after that, as soon as you first said it. But it's a process, right? If they're 3 years old and over, use my free behavior board. It's up in the link above, and you put down no bad words. Okay, you don't have to repeat what they are. So like if they repeat it, say that's a bad word, you do not use that. And then if they really don't know, they usually know if it's a bad word, right? So I just assume they know that because you've already said no a whole bunch of times, I'm sure. So then there's a consequence. If they say a bad word, there's a consequence. So check out the behavior board. It explains how to do that. Yes, I feel they understand each other very well. Yeah. My 2.5-year-old thinks it's the funniest thing ever when she pinches me or pulls my hair. I don't know what to do. You physically restrain them or prevent them from being aggressive. Okay, I actually have a course on that. It's one of my mini toddler courses. It's about toddlers who hit and bite, etc. But yeah, they think it's funny because your reaction is probably, "Oh, no, no." So they're getting a reaction. They actually, if okay, I could really get into this and I don't really want to, but if they some children want a reaction no matter what it is. That sometimes says to me, not all the time, that they don't get enough attention. You don't play enough in their world. So they try and invent that situation. Could be the case. Otherwise, they're just testing stuff out. Don't try and figure them out. Okay. I can usually tell when I'm around kids why they're doing it. But yeah, don't worry about that. I've just been working with kids for so long. But yeah, just have it's consistent corrective actions. It's not words. Consistent corrective actions. That's how you discipline toddlers. I've done lots of videos on that. If you just look up Bratbusters how to discipline toddlers, it comes up. I was going to read this question. Um, the, it just says encourage more viewers to share, and I'm like, what? It's not a question. It just pops up every. I don't know why. I don't know. I don't understand that, but it just struck me as funny. I thought because I'll sometimes just read whatever comes up, and it's sometimes even inappropriate. Okay, appropriate consequences for a 3-year-old. Helping do chores. You might take something away from them, something that they like. So, but yeah, check out the behavior board. It has some ideas in there. It kind of goes through how you do have rules and consequences. That's what it's all about. You're on there too. That's what makes it different. That's what makes it work. Because I teach leadership parenting. I don't teach the old-fashioned authority. You don't want obedient little soldiers. You want confident, happy kids who feel good about themselves, right? So you're guiding them into making good choices. You're not telling them what to do. You're guiding them into making good choices. But there's a rule and a consequence. Hey, you did that. That was wrong. There's a consequence for that. It's like that. That's how it goes. Yeah, this is tough. This is not a TikTok answer, by the way, but I'll address it. I have a 5-year-old who's having severe behavior during school that causes me to leave my job every day. You'd have to hire me for that. I'd have to assess what's going on. That's not a TikTok answer. So if you want to hire me, go on the link above. Private coaching is all done on Zoom. Okay. But anyway, and you might also want to try out my course, or instead of coaching. Some people do both, but the course is called Bratbusters Boot Camp, and that's from 3 to 12-year-olds. Remember, we're never fixing kids. We're fixing and teaching parents here. So that course is designed to teach you how to be a leader in 5 weeks, and that stuff just doesn't happen. It just doesn't. When kids have leaders at home, they're just easy. It's just the way it is. Leadership leads to confident children with high self-esteem who make good choices. They want to please you. They'd be embarrassed to act out. When they have a leader as a parent, they would be embarrassed. I remember if I ever acted out, my mom was the leader, my dad was the pleaser. And that's often the way. There's nothing wrong with that. They just need one leader. Anyway, but if I did something that I knew my mom wouldn't like, I was embarrassed. And I just got mom's look. If she was sitting down, it was always like this. And oh, I hated it because she was my leader. I looked up to her. I didn't want to disappoint my mom, you know? So that's what a leader does. Oh, how to get a 1.5-year-old to play independently. You get it going. You start the engine rolling. Also get a toy rotation system in place. So they're able to focus. The more crap they have around, more clutter that's around, the less likely they are to focus and play on their own. It's just the way it is. So you rotate their toys maybe once a week. You only have a few toys out at any given time so they don't tend to get bored. And then you start the play with them and then just back away and see how it goes. But yeah, it's a process. They're just babies still, really. So yeah, it's just a process. It's not going to happen overnight. But yeah, make sure, but do the toy rotation system. I don't like playrooms. I never wanted one. I wanted my kids around me, like I wanted to see them. Plus a playroom implies that there's a lot of crap out there all the time. And it does not tend to lead to focused kids. Yeah, it tends to lead to, they're running from one thing to the other. They throw everything around. It's chaotic. So they don't do well with that. You said, I honestly don't know what to do. I've tried everything and it's not working. Have you hired me? I mean, that's coaching is that next level. I would assess what's going on, and that's what coaching's all about. People say to me, I've tried everything. Well, if you tried coaching, I mean, that's the one-on-one stuff. Okay, that's in the link if you're interested. Um, Okay, this is a good point. This is on YouTube. Uh, Jacina says, daughter of authority parent. All five siblings rebelled our teenage years and respect her now as adults. It's exactly what I say all the time. The old fashioned authority style parenting, not a bad way to parent. It's not what I teach. It's not a bad way. What happens is the kids are pretty good. Then they rebel in the teen years because they tend to rebel against authority. That's how they grow up. They rebel, but then they come out the other end stronger and respecting that parent for all the authority. They come out the other end good, like great adults, and they respect that, and they actually often say, "Thank you for all that discipline you did. I needed it." So it's not a bad way to parent. I don't do that. But the pleaser style is a disaster. That's the last 30 years. That's all these mini therapy sessions, the participation awards, which is absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, it's all that kind of stuff, trying to make their life as easy as possible. These parents will often go into school, tell the teacher how they want their child to be singled out as special. My child's very special. I want you to treat them this way. They're also the parent that runs into school every time their child's looked at the wrong way. So my child's special. I want the whole world. They're that entitlement, right? So what happens is as your children grow, they look at you like a dish rag and they wipe their feet on you. They never respect you. And then they tend to rebel in the teenage years, just like the authority style kids do in the teen years, but then they come out the other end, self-entitled snowflakes with mental health issues because they've never had a leader. They've never had anyone guide them or discipline them, and their self-esteem is in the toilet. They desperately need a leader. Children need, crave, and want a leader. That's part of meeting their needs and managing their wants. Their need is having a leader. That's almost their number one need, aside from love and food and all that sort of stuff. But they need a leader. They need someone to guide them along the way. And they need someone to guide them in how to deal with stuff themselves rather than going in and saving the day. I always can tell a pleaser style parent because they'll say to me, how do I make chores fun? Why would you want to do that? It's important that children learn how to do the tough stuff too. Why would you want to make chores fun? You want to make everything fun and easy for your children? Self-entitlement, snowflakes, mental health issues down the road. I see it all the time. So, do you coach kids on the spectrum? I don't coach any kids. With kids, I coach parents. And yes, that comes up in coaching. It's only coaching though. That's more of a specialty. I don't discuss autism on TikTok or on YouTube or anywhere. Okay, good question. Again, Justine asked another question on YouTube. We had an absent father and also played a part. Is it possible to be a good parent on your own? I was a single mom. Absolutely. Their dad wasn't absent, but I was the leader for sure. And he was the pleaser parent. That's often what happens. There's nothing wrong with that. But we were always on the same page. We always put the kids' needs first. And so yeah, we never fought or anything. So they never was suffered as a result of us splitting up because we always went everywhere together with them, and we still made sure we were a united front as parents, sort of. But yeah, I was the leader, he was the pleaser. My mom was the leader, my dad was the pleaser. So long as there's a leader, that's okay. And the pleaser backs up the leader. So an example of when my husband would take the kids out, and they would try and push him around a little bit, just a little bit when they were little. And he would say, do you want me to tell mom? And they'd go, no, never mind, kept them in line. So he used me as leverage. And there's nothing wrong with that, but they just need one leader. Okay, so they desperately need that though. Can you kind of give a guide on how being the leader would look? Well, basically that's my course, but the leadership parent brings out the best in your children. That's all you're doing. You want your children to like themselves. When they like themselves, they have high self-esteem and they make good choices, and they would never disrespect you. They just don't. They just don't. Why would they? My kids never said they hated me or anything like that. Why would they? My son was 15 years old and he says, I could never rebel because you're too reasonable and easy to talk to. That's a good leader. Right through the teen years, okay? I was reasonable and easy to talk to. But I had rules. I mean, if they didn't follow them, I'd say, hey buddy, you forgot to put your laundry in the hamper. How about you brush my hair for 5 minutes now? Or something like that. It was something ridiculous like that. But yeah, I was very much the leader. But in the teenage years, you want them to sort of take over the role. But it's about their self-esteem and making good choices. Okay? You want them to like themselves. When they like themselves when they're with you, because I've worked with hundreds of kids, when they like themselves when they're with me, they want to please me. When they're teenagers, I mentored troubled teens. When they like themselves when they were with me, they didn't want to disappoint me. It kind of doesn't, they don't want to please you all the time, but they don't want to disappoint you. One of the teenagers I worked with told me, he says, I've never I've never liked myself until I met you. Wow, that's a leader. You make them like themselves. And then they end up liking you too, but it's not about you. It's about them. It's all focused on them. You want them to like themselves and feel great about themselves. Kids who are acting out don't feel good about themselves. It's impossible to feel good about yourself if you're acting out. It's just impossible. So yeah, a leader, that's what that does. I have a whole course on that if you're interested. It's the boot camp if you have a 3 to a 12-year-old, how to be a leader in 5 weeks. How would you react when a toddler doesn't want to share? Well, that's sort of on you. Like what I mean is you gotta be in charge of that stuff. Toddlers don't know how to share, basically. If they grab a toy from someone, away from someone, you go right over and it's consistent corrective action. You say no, and you give the toy back to the other child and let that child process that. Let them have a tantrum. Let them process it. Because they learn sort of that way. They learn through repetition, but it's consistent corrective actions. No words with toddlers. You should share because he wants it too, and they're not listening to you. They don't give a crap. They're not listening. It's all about, they learn that if they grab a toy, it's going to be given back to that other child right away. That's what they learn. But if they're really little, you also show them how to play without grabbing. So it's not just showing them what not to do, it's showing them what to do. So that's why you got to get involved in this stuff. They're not going to learn how to do that when they're 2 years old. They don't learn how to share when they're 2. They don't even play together until they're about 3. You watch a 2-year-old playing with another 2-year-old. They don't play together. They sort of might look like they are, but they're not really. It's not a cooperative playing thing. It's like, I want that. How long can I wait till I get it? When they're 3, they'll start to say, here, do you want to do this together? It starts to shift and change. And that's when the sharing comes into it. Can you be a pleaser and a leader? Absolutely not. No. A pleaser worries about being liked and worries about making everything easy for them and avoiding a scene. A pleaser avoids a scene. I would never in a million years avoid a scene. Not in a million years, ever. Like if a child hits someone and I just try and distract them to avoid a scene, not in a freaking million years would I ever do that. If they hit someone, I would say no. And then I would remove them from the situation or take the fun away from them. And then I would let them have a scene. Let them process not getting what they want, when they want, and how they want it. A pleaser would try to avoid a scene. Absolutely, 100%. That's what they do. Yeah. And they try and make everything easy for their children. Part of that is to avoid a scene. A leader teaches children you got to do what you need to do before you can do what you want to do. Like my kids would never have said, can we play video games unless their chores were done? They wouldn't, or their homework was done. In a million years, they wouldn't have said that. They just wouldn't have. They wouldn't say, can we watch TV? And their laundry was on the floor in their room. It just would not have happened. And it was no big deal. Like they just, understood. You take your clothes off, it goes in the hamper. You get up, you make your bed. You do your homework, then you can watch TV. Right? It's like that. It's called self-discipline. My kids were self-disciplining from the age of about 3.5, I'd say. I never had to tell them what to do. About 3.5, that kicks in. And they have a lot of pride in themselves. And then you can just relax and have fun. I was a really goofy mother. I was crazy Lisa. Like the other kids, I was nuts because I already took care of all the discipline when my kids were tiny. So I didn't have to do it again. Because they were proud of themselves, so they made good choices. They were self-disciplining. Okay, here we go. I usually explain things to my son, and lately I've just been saying no and moving him. Consistent corrective action. It's working. It just does. It works. But I'm giving you the advice. You're doing the work. So pat yourself on the back. It's just my advice, but you're doing the work. Good for you. You should be happy. You should be happy about yourself. Be proud of yourself. Go get yourself a treat. What are appropriate consequences for teenagers? Okay, teenagers, notice I don't have a course on teenagers. I will get one out one day. But anyway, 13 and up. When they're little and younger, actually, I'll go through the 4 stages of parenting first. There are 4 very specific stages of parenting, and they're not about the children. They're about you, okay? How you act with this in these 4 different stages. So the first stage is you have a baby from 0 to 15 months. It's all love and just coddling, and they cry, you pick them up. It's all that kind of stuff. A little bit of no, you don't hit and you hold their hands. You're getting into that. Then you go into the toddler parent. You're parenting toddlers. They're 16 to 35 months, okay? At that age, you're really starting to teach them right from wrong. You're also teaching them how to do things right. Like if they do something wrong and they hit someone, you say no, and then you show them how to go and play on their own or whatever, or play, with their own toys and not hit the other kid. So you're not just teaching them what not to do, you're also teaching them what to do. That's a toddler, and it's all about consistent corrective actions, not about words. Now, 3 to 12, that seems like a broad range, and it is. They're very different, but your parenting style is not. That's why my course, the boot camp, is from 3 to 12 years old. You're very similar style of parenting with a 3-year-old and a 12-year-old. This is the height of leadership. This is when you want them to want to please you because you're the leader. Okay, 3 to 12 years old. So anyway, and that's all about just, they'll be self-disciplining. When you get this right, they're self-disciplining. Life's easy, it's all fun. Then 13 and up, that's the teenage. You change how you parent around that area. 12, 13, 14, you really change how you parent. And the 3 top tips for parenting teenagers, and I'll get into this a little bit, is listening. Number 1 is listen to understand and show empathy. You do not listen to gather information to lecture with. If they want your advice, they'll ask for it. When they're telling you something, you listen to understand, you go, yeah, that would be frustrating, and then stop talking. Okay, they already know your advice anyway. So, and the better you get at that, they're going to tell you everything. I told my mom everything. My kids told me everything. It's just the way it is. You're a safe place to land. So work on your listening skills. Number 2 is you negotiate pretty much everything. So you say something like this, hey, I want your dirty clothes in the hamper every time you take them off. What do you want from me? So I want you to improve in that way. What do you want from me? Okay. Then number 3 is don't sweat the small stuff. Allow them to make mistakes. And when they do, say something like this, well, that was stupid. Wait till you hear what I did when I was your age. So you see, be relatable and make it very clear that it's okay to make mistakes. We all did. That's part of growing up. So you save your energy for the big stuff. So how do you discipline teenagers? You've got to get that the first 2 things in line first, and the first 3 things. You got to get all that in line first before you can even think about getting into the big stuff. Okay, does that make sense? You're working on your relationship with your teenager. You can use my behavior board with teenagers. I call it an accountability chart, and you're on there too. They really like that. So you start small with them, big with you. Make their rule small, make your rule big, and ask them, what do you want? What do you want my rule to be? They usually say, shut up and get off my back, something like that, and say, well, that's probably impossible. That's too much to ask from me. So I use humor too. So you got to bond with them first, and then you can discipline. You got to get that stuff sort of sorted out first. If you want my help, you can hire me for coaching. Teenagers, it's almost always 5 sessions. And you won't like me in the first session. I'm just warning you. Yeah, there's some work we have to do in the first week just to sort of set the base on how we move forward. So actually, teenagers are my favorite age. They're my specialty. I started my business 17 years ago specializing in teen crisis work. And then I used to do a lot of TV and radio, so as the parenting expert. And so I remember once I was introduced, there was a news story, and I was introduced as the crisis queen. And I stopped doing media after that. I don't want to be the crisis queen. I want to be the I don't want to be the queen anyway, but I want to be, I like prevention more than, fixing stuff. But a lot of coaching is fixing stuff. But yeah, I'm on here to hopefully prevent those problems. Yeah, I don't want to be the crisis queen. It was just so negative. I'm a very positive person. I like to focus on the solutions and positivity. It struck me the wrong way. I understand why they said that because I specialize in crisis. But anyway, okay. Can you please tell me how much explaining we can do to a 4-year-old? It depends on what it is. Like if they already know, then why would you explain it? I don't explain anything they already understand because it makes you look weak. Well, you shouldn't have hit your sister. The reason why you don't do that, there's no way I would explain that. 4-year-old, I would not explain why you don't hit someone. Never. Why would you do that? They're like, you sound weak. The reason you don't do that is that you just say, no hitting, bang, done. That's all I would say. You hit, here's the consequence. If you hit your little sister, she gets to play with your favorite toy today. Do you understand? That's how I deal with it. Parents tend to over-explain because what they're doing is they're actually procrastinating because they don't want to discipline. That's why they over-explain. I get it. I understand. I deal with this every day with clients. They over-explain, hoping that the kid won't do it again, and they don't actually have to do anything. It's a way of procrastinating and avoiding discipline. Oh, don't ask me about any wars or anything. This is not a political channel. Yeah. Okay. Can you repeat what that last step was about being relatable to your teen. Oh, relatable. Okay, so let's say your teenager does something stupid and it's not a big deal. Like they just did something kind of dumb. I would say to my kids from the time they were little, I would say, yeah, that was really stupid. Wait to hear what I did when I was your age. Okay. And then they'd laugh and then they'd go, yeah. Okay. And I'd say, it's okay to make mistakes. Okay. If it was something that they had to make amends for or correct, then we would say, okay, well, let's fix it up. But otherwise, I would say, yeah, we all make mistakes. So, yeah, you want to be relatable because you don't want to set the old fashioned authority style parent, which was not a horrible way to parent at all. It worked for many, many years and it was fun. It tends to raise great adults. The new style that's been in for 30 years, I call it the pleaser parent style. And that is, it's a disaster. You're raising self entitled snowflakes with mental health issues. It's an absolute disaster. Um, but yeah, the difference is the old fashioned authority style parent, they never like to show their own weaknesses. I'm totally opposite. I like to show how vulnerable, how I don't know a whole bunch of stuff at all. I'm not perfect. I'm no smarter than you, but I'm your mother and I am the leader for sure. I'm here to guide you along the way to help raise you. That's what I'm here for. It's my job. So, but yeah, I never set myself up as being holier than thou, or I would never say something like, "Well, I'm your mother, you do what I say." Like that to me is just condescending and patronizing. I wouldn't do that. So yeah, I'd say, "Well, here's the rule, and if you don't follow it, my job as your parent is to have a consequence." That's how I did it. But I had rules too. If I messed up, oh boy, my kids loved it. If I messed up and I hate it when people are late. It's a real thing with me. It's so disrespectful. So, but if I was ever late or anything, usually I had a good reason, but still I knew I was in trouble with my kids and they couldn't wait. They'd say, and they'd be looking at each other like this. And I'd say, oh, sorry, I was late. Blah, blah. And then I'd say, what do you want? Because I knew I was going to have to make amends. So I was accountable. That's part of being relatable. Because if you're accountable and you admit to your own mistakes, they are more likely to be accountable and admit to their own mistakes. They are forming by watching you, by what you do. They're more likely to copy you than to do what you say. They're not listening, they're watching. Okay. The watching is way more powerful. They're kind of listening too, but the watching is way more powerful. Are you accountable? If you mess up, do you apologize to them and say, what can I do to make it up to you? How can you expect them to be accountable if you're not? So it's very important that you show I make mistakes too, and you make them. And don't try and be perfect. Who wants a perfect person anyway? We're bored. I've known people who try to come off as perfect. They're the most boring people I've ever met in my whole life. I like people who laugh at all the stupid things they do. I'm into self-deprecating stuff. Okay. I'm pretty sure you nailed me. I needed to hear that. Yeah, I can't help myself. I have to say what I need to say. Like I'm not here to be liked. I'm here for you to like yourself and enjoy parenting. So yeah, I'm here. I got to tell you what you need to hear. Making you look like the bad guy. The funny thing is the leader is the one the kids go to. The leader's the one that kids tell everything to. You're the good guy. The good guy is the one that guides them into making good choices, right? You guide them into making them feel good about themselves. The leader is the good guy. Absolutely. You're the one they go to. You're the one they trust. You're the one they tell everything to. That's what the leader is. Yeah, there's no dot on my face. I didn't have any blueberries or anything. Actually, blueberries are purple. Yeah, and you said that's why we love you. Thanks so much for that. I appreciate that. But I really do have to say it like it is because if I was on here trying to be popular, that wouldn't be helping you, would I? I need to say, and I'm old. I mean, I've been doing this for 51 years now. I've been working with kids, and yeah, it just all makes sense to me. It's worked with hundreds of kids and well, thousands because of my coaching too. So it just works. You want your children to feel great about themselves when they're with you. I'm going to read out. Yesterday was my birthday, and my son's not one for mushy stuff, so I have to really read between the lines to find it. Anyway, what he wrote down was he's got a daughter due soon. That's his very first. It's my first grandchild and his first child, obviously. He said, he talked about the stories that we did, and he said, "Thanks for all the great stories and the laughs. I'm looking forward to seeing you bringing that same joy to your granddaughter." We had a pack of fun growing up. because I got all that pesky discipline out of the way when they were tiny. By the time they were 3.5, they were self-disciplining, they were respectful, and we were just friends. We just went out and laughed and had fun together. Goofy as anything. We just had a blast. Parenting was the most fun I ever had. But I earned that. I earned that. I earned that freedom by setting myself up as the leader. When you set yourself up as the leader, you can just relax and have fun right through the teen years. There's the odd little hiccup along the way, but nothing to write home about. So yeah, that's what I want for you. That's why I'm on here every single day. I'm on here talking. I do videos all the time because I want you to enjoy parenting as much as I did. I want you to sail through it like I did, right through the teen years. That's what I want for you. That's really important to me. That's why I'm spreading this message all the time. I had to take a breath there because I'm so passionate about this. Well, I don't know. I can't possibly answer this. How to prevent a preschooler from escaping class? I don't know what's going on there. How on earth can they get out of the classroom? Like, I don't know what's going on there. Oh, my 5-year-old. Okay. My 5-year-old does something and I ask, what did you do that was wrong? Is that a good way? No, I wouldn't do that. He already knows. You're dragging it out. You're doing the therapy session stuff. I would say, that was bad. Here's the consequence. You don't do that. It's just, you're over. Yeah, I wouldn't do it. He's 5 years old. I would have said to my kids, oops, you did that. What are you going to do? And they would come up with it. They'd say, oh, how about I help with the laundry? Or how about I vacuum? So they would come. That's all I'd say. But I wouldn't discuss what they did wrong. They already know. You know, that's the therapy session stuff. They already know. You drag it out. Drag it out. Don't drag it out. Just get it done. Okay. Lisa, I raised my kids exactly like you did, and now using same to enjoy grandkids. Your work great. Isn't that, yeah, I'm looking forward to grandkids. That was never my end game. Like, to me, it was just about mothering. I've never really been excited about having grandkids, and I'll tell you why. Because, like, this will be me in the hospital. I'll be holding my granddaughter, and then my son's going to say, can I have her back? And I'm going to go, no. Like, you have to hand them back. I loved mothering. They were mine. I didn't have to hand them back all the time. That's why I'm gonna love being a grandmother, but it's not the same as parenting. You have to hand them back. You don't get to live with them 24/7. That was the joy. I loved it. So, and I knew someone else who loved mothering as much as I did, like just had a blast with it. She said the same thing. She had like 15 grandkids. And she goes, I love all my grandkids as much as my kids, but it's not the same. She said, it's nowhere near as much fun as parenting because you have to hand them back. If you love mothering as much as I did, that's a negative. How to get a 16-month-old to stop throwing tantrums. I have a mini tantrum course if you're interested. It's called Tantrum Busting, and it's up in the link above. It goes through in great detail how you go through that. And I also have tons of videos on tantrums. It's almost clickbait at this point. If I talk about ignoring, because you ignore tantrums, but it's a little bit more involved than that. You don't just walk out of the room and leave them. So anyway, but it's almost clickbait because every time I talk about tantrums, I get huge views, and I still have to talk about them because people want to hear about it. But yeah, a lot of people are really offended by my ignoring tantrums, and I love it when they get mad at me. So because I'm shaking things up, right? That's why I'm here. I'm shaking things up. A lot of parents, the pleaser style parent, wants to use the therapy sessions with tantrums. It's garbage, right? So, but yeah, so I love it when they hate me and they come after me like you wouldn't believe. And I just love it because I'm shaking things up. Funny thing is, it's a lot of the same people saying all the same rotten stuff to me. Why do they keep watching? I'm obviously getting to them, and some of them end up hiring me because they start to realize that when you learn how to ignore the crazy and reward the calm, things get easier. But yeah, they're actually rewarding. Any attention is tantrum food. So they actually are rewarding the crazy. Actually, I'm going to tell, it's my favorite story for explaining tantrums. There's a couple stories I use all the time, but this one is the swing story. And it just explains, most of you on here have toddlers. So I'll explain the best story. It explains tantrums. the right way and the wrong way. Okay. So it's a true story. My son was 2 years old. I took him to the park, and there was another mom there, and she also had a 2-year-old boy. And I didn't really know her. We were putting our little boys on the 2 swings that were available, and we're introducing ourselves, chatting away. And both boys pointed to the other swing. They wanted the other swing. So we're like, let's just switch them. Who cares? Because we just wanted to chat, right? So went to switch them over, and they both started having a tantrum right away. So I took my son to one bench. This is what I did. I took my son to a bench, and he went to run back to the swing. I put my arm out right away, and he knew. And then he just sat back and cried and had a tantrum because he knows mom. He knows there's no way he was going to get to that swing. He already knew me at that point, figured me out. So he sat back and had a tantrum, and I'm just looking at the birds and the trees, looking around. There's no way I would look at him or give him any attention because I ignore the crazy. Anyway, I'm looking around. As soon as he stopped, it only lasted for like 2 minutes. He had longer ones, but this one was only like 2 minutes. As soon as he was done, I said, oh, y'all done? Okay, let's go back on the swing. Okay, so I ignore the crazy and reward the calm. He was starting to put it together. Tantrums are a loss of control. They can't always think it through, but sometimes they can. And he actually realized as soon as I shut up, I get back on that swing. That's what he knew from me. So anyway, he's back on the swing, having a great time. Here's the other bench with the other mom. She's talking throughout the whole tantrum. She's telling him what he shouldn't do. Calm down. Give mommy a hug. You know I love you. You know that you could have gone on the other swing. It's making it worse because she's feeding it. Worse and worse and worse and worse. And this kid was in a frenzy for like 20 minutes. Anyway, afterward, he finally calmed down and he had the hiccup cries. Now, what she did was then she chose that moment to start to discuss everything he did wrong. Now, you shouldn't have done that. She gave him a therapy session. He's 2, gave him a therapy session. This kid's going through hell. She's rubbing salt in the wound. She just wouldn't let it go, wouldn't let it go. So she rewarded the crazy, and then she didn't even reward the calm. After he calmed down, there was no reward. It was just more digging in, the therapy session, punishing him. It was just awful. It was agony to watch. Anyway, I guess he eventually went back in the swing. It was 30 minutes by this time. My kid had been swinging. So he was tired. He wanted to go home. So we went home, and her and her son were a mess. Now, do you get the difference there? Do you understand the difference? Now, when you first start doing this, it's not going to go like it did with my son. I'd already used this method on him forever. So 2 years. So he already understood this, that mom was going to, but when you first start doing it, it's going to get worse before it gets better because they remember you feeding the tantrum. Whereas my son had no memory of me ever feeding a tantrum. So he knew he was never going to get attention or what he wanted. Okay, by having a tantrum. Does that make sense? Ignore the crazy, reward the calm when it comes to toddler tantrums or any tantrum action. But and then people say, yeah, but what about if they're hitting? Well, obviously you restrain aggression. You restrain them if they're hitting or punching or kicking. You don't allow them to hurt themselves, hurt other people, or damage property. So when they get aggressive, you physically restrain them. You still don't look at them. You don't talk to them. You just physically restrain them like that. So it just works. It just does. Usually gets worse before it gets better because they remember you as feeding a tantrum, if that was your go-to. Okay. Okay. Please comment on fussy eaters and having to throw food away constantly. I can't discuss nutrition because I'm not a nutritionist or a doctor. I'm just a parenting coach. I'm just a mom, right? And I've worked with hundreds of kids, but I'm all in volunteering. I've never had any qualifications. So I just want to make that really clear. I don't discuss nutrition, but I'll tell you what I did with my own kids, and you can maybe get some ideas from that. Right now I'm radical. I'm a gluten-free health food vegan. I work out every day, so I'm really obsessed with health and fitness. When my kids were little, I was pretty good at it too, but not as radical because I didn't want to put all that veganism and all that stuff on. And I wasn't a vegan back then anyway, but I wouldn't put that on kids. But what I did was I only had healthy food in the house. My kids knew if they didn't eat the broccoli, there was no ice cream or chips in our house at all. And there was never any dessert. But they could have their snacks were like cakes and cookies. But my cakes and cookies were full of healthy stuff. They didn't taste like normal cakes and cookies. They were my cakes and cookies. So they were full of all spinach and they were just full of all this healthy stuff. So I made sure that they only had healthy options. So what that did for them from the time they were really little is they didn't develop a sweet or a salt tooth. That means which leads to not getting real cravings. Those two things from my experience, tend to lead to cravings. So kids who are used to getting sugar, they tend to hold out for it. If my kids, maybe if they thought there was ice cream in the freezer, they might not have eaten their vegetables. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so all they had was this healthy food or that healthy food. Plus, I don't believe in pushing food on kids if they really don't like the taste of it. I'm very appeasing with that. I really believe in. I wanted just relaxing meals. So what I did, I knew what they kind of liked and what they didn't like, and so I kind of cooked around that. So, and I was pretty good at hiding stuff. I could puree spinach and hide it in anything. My son, cute little story here is my son. I don't know how old he was, but anyway, he was somewhere, and he came home and he goes, "The pizza was really weird." Because he'd only had my homemade dough, my homemade sauce, everything was homemade, right? Because I made everything from scratch. So he said the sauce was red. He thought pizza sauce should be brown because when I made it, I pureed spinach into it and it turned brown. He thought pizza sauce should be brown. Anyway, so yeah, fussy eaters often are very fussy because there's ice cream and potato chips waiting for them. That's what I did. That's how I feel about that. But that's just my opinion. I'm not a nutritionist, so. And then someone said on here once, they said, "Oh, well, how did they word it?" They say, "Well, I like my kids to be happy." You don't think my kids were happy? Like they were probably happy because they were healthy, right? Like you want them to be happy. Kids don't need ice cream to be happy. I'm not saying don't give it to them, but it's not a necessity. It's not a necessity for children to have ice cream to be happy. There's lots of happy children out there who don't eat junk food. So it's not a necessity. And I get this in my old age now too. An odd time I'll come against someone who is very offended by my healthy lifestyle. I don't even go on about it at all, but they're very offended by the way I look and that I look after myself. Oh, well, you just must be obsessive. I like to enjoy my life. And, they're very offended by the fact that maybe I'm happy too. Like just because I'm healthy and fit, I'm happy too. I might even be happier than them, but they would never admit that. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with eating healthy and teaching your kids to eat healthy. I'm not saying you need to be that radical, but yeah, some people are very offended by that. Yeah, I get this all the time. Mirella, yeah, if you keep using chores as consequences, won't they see chores as punishment eventually? So, like, so we're not. I don't necessarily want them to enjoy cleaning a toilet. What's wrong with that? If they see chore, that's the pleaser parent style. How do we make chores fun? They should be fun. No, they shouldn't. It's important for children to learn how to do what they don't want to do before they can do what they want to do. That's important that they do the hard stuff, the yucky stuff. So what's wrong with chores not being fun? What's wrong with that? Nothing. So yeah, that's that pleaser style parent. They want to make everything fun and enjoyable. They don't want their children to do anything yucky. When my kids were 15, I made them go out and get part-time jobs, and I was praying that they'd have to clean a public toilet at least once. It wasn't their jobs, but yeah, they both had to clean public toilets. I was thrilled. I was like, yes, because you want to build resilience. You want to build kids who are disciplined, who will do whatever it takes. I'm really proud of what good workers they are. But I never tried to make chores fun, but they had to do them. But they didn't think anything of it. Plus, I ran a very minimal, kind of a clean home, and it was never cluttered. So when my kids from the age of 3, they had 3 chores they had to do every single day: make their bed, put their toys away, and put their laundry away every single day. But the bed was a duvet cover they had to pull up. I didn't care how messy it was; it just had to be pulled up. I did laundry every day, so they had like one outfit to put away. And it was an empty hanger, and I had an empty spot in the drawer. Like everything was very organized. And their toys, I did a toy rotation system. So there was like 5 toys to put. I like open shelving. I don't like big boxes where you throw toys into. It's cluttered and messy. So I liked everything on open shelving. I had bookcases in their rooms. They were all like anchored to the wall, obviously. And there was like 5 toys that they had to put away. Literally, when I said, "Oh, as soon as you finish your chores, you can have breakfast or do whatever, watch TV." And they would run around doing their chores. 2 minutes it took them to do their chores. 2 minutes. So chores, they didn't like doing them, but it was an efficient system. Make things not easy for them, but make them doable, make them manageable. Sometimes parents, what they often do is they say, "I told my kids to clean up their room," but then I say, well, and this is when I'm coaching, I'll say, "Can you walk in there with the webcam and show me what their room looks like?" It is a cluttered mess. And I'm saying I would not expect a 3-year-old to do that. It's ridiculous. I wouldn't even expect probably a 10-year-old to do that. So I say, you go in, you do the hard work, and then get systems in place, make it manageable so a child can manage it. Builds character and resilience. Absolutely. My kids are both freaking hard workers. Like I'm really proud of them because I taught them discipline. I taught them how to be self-disciplined. So I'm very proud of what hard workers they are. Bum, bum, bum. Adulting isn't all about fun. Kids have to learn that contributing and doing chores is normal. I'm going to write that down. Very good, Christina. Ba, 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 ba. Adulting, I like that. Isn't all about fun. Kids have to learn that contributing, and doing chores is normal. From Christina. Thank you, Christina. Could not have said that better myself. Right? It's perfect. Perfect. You want to teach them about reality. Yeah. My goal was never to make my kids' lives easy. My goal was to make my kids' lives fun and normal. I'll give you an example of this. My son was labeled gifted when he was little, and I came up against some resistance from the schools. They wanted to put him in special programs. I refused. I want him mainstreamed, and because I wanted him to be normal. And then by high school, they did segregate him. I didn't have a say in it by high school. And I still disagree with that. That was in Australia. They segregated. They had 3 different levels in high school. They had the gifted children, and then they had the children who were really struggling, and then they had all the rest, which was the main one. I could not have disagreed with that more. I think it's horrendous to do that to children, because I didn't want my child to think he was better than anybody else just because he was born gifted. Never take pride in your gifts. You were just given those. Don't take pride in your gifts. Take pride in your actions and what you do. That's what I focused on with my kids. When they were nice and did something, I was all over them, but just, yeah, you just happen to be born attractive and smart. So that was a gift. Don't take pride in that. But when I worked with kids, which kids do you think I worked with when I was mentoring teenagers? Which kids do you think that were the troubled kids? The ones that were the struggling? They all knew, they used to call themselves the dumb kids in the school. Those are the ones I worked with. I could not have disagreed with that more. Anyway, so yeah, you want them to fit in. You want them to be normal. You don't want them to learn to have to do hard stuff. Life isn't always going to be easy. It tends to give them more, they're less likely to have mental health issues. If you teach them from a young age how to deal with that, life isn't always fair. Life isn't always easy. But at home, I made sure our home life was pretty darn good. That's where all the fun happened. They could tell me everything. That was our safe zone. But out there in the world, I did not want them to be treated special. Nope, at all. But at home, that was the fun. That was the crazy fun zone. It was all good. Yeah, too many parents don't want to build strength and resistance. Or what did you say? The 2 words are character and resilience. I'm going to write that down too. Builds character. Thank you. Geez, Christina, what do you do for a living? What do you do for a living, Christina? I'm curious. A lot of my clients are child psychologists, and they don't always own up to it right away, but I can usually tell. I'm not saying you are, but I mean, I often am curious what people do because they just have insight. Builds. I'm gonna write this out and use that. Is that okay with you, Christina? Okay, so adulting isn't all about fun. Kids have to learn that contributing and doing chores is normal. It builds character and resilience. Absolutely. If you're always trying to make everything easy for them, doing everything for them, they're just snowflakes. They're just self-entitled snowflakes with mental health issues. That's where they're headed. Yeah, I need help with my adult kids at this point. Wish I found you earlier. I do sometimes take on clients who have up to 25 years old. I'll take on only if they're still living with you and they're somewhat financially dependent upon you, because you need leverage. And so, yeah, it's tough. It is really tough because they're so formed at that age, right? Once they're formed, they're still so pliable and resilient up until I would say about the age, let me think. I don't want to put a number on it. But the tweens are when they start to really develop themselves. That's why it's when the hormones kick in. They start to really develop into who they're going to be. You can still work with a lot of stuff, but it gets harder and harder as they get older. I specialize in teenagers. They're my favorite age. You can still really work on your relationship and fix things and help, but it's harder. It takes longer. and a lot more skill. You need a lot more skill to work with teenagers or to work, help your teenagers. I tell my daughter that we are a team and we both live here. Absolutely. What do you do for a living, Christina? I'm just curious, if you don't mind. I'm just a mama. I'm trained in medical field and life experiences. LO, have my nursing degree. Yeah, okay. There you go. Sometimes I'll, when I'm working with someone, I'll say, "What do you do?" Like I'm just curious. I don't always. I don't know. Hardly ever do, but sometimes I will. I'll say something and I'll, "What do you do?" And sure enough, it kind of makes sense. Just, some people are just real whips with some things. I'm not, but some people are. Uh, Okay, actually, I have to get going. Yeah, I have to. I've got an appointment. So anyway, thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Every time you turn up, I'm very grateful because I get to share what I think is really helpful information. Because I'm here to help you. I'm here to make parenting fun and easy for you. That's always my goal. I'm not about talking about the past. I'm all about solutions and what I want to take you where I want you to go. And I want you to have fun and enjoy parenting and find it easy. That's always my goal for you. It's not just about discipline. It's not just about your kids respecting you. I want you to have fun. I want you to laugh with your kids and enjoy them. That's what I did. I just loved it. And that's what I want for you. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me. Check the link above if you want to hire me for coaching, buy one of my courses, or download my free behavior board. I'll be back again tomorrow. Thanks so much. Bye now.